Today's video is going to be a little bit rambly slash casual conversation-y. I appreciate the folks that stick with it, but it's a topic that's been on my mind, and I wanted to have something like this to reference when it comes up on my live stream and in other spots organically to reference, and that is I think Marvel Snap has a long-term content creation support problem. You've probably noticed recently that myself and a lot of your other favorite Marvel Snap content creators are casually slash cautiously slash optimistically dipping their toes into the water of other games when it comes to content creation. Pokemon Pocket and the Bazaar launched recently, and Marvel Rivals is just around the corner. And I would bet when that one drops, you're going to see a lot of your regular Marvel Snap content creators dip into there as well. And the reason for this is pretty straightforward. When you're someone like myself who's primarily a one game content creator, your best chance to transition and have other content be successful is if it aligns with the content you're currently making on at least a single axis. In the case of Pokemon Pocket and the Bazaar, a lot of people are seeing some reasonable numbers translation there because they're turn-based strategy games. And in the case of Marvel Rivals, it'll align with Marvel Snap in that it's the same IP, even if the genre of game is very different. That also doesn't mean that just because a game has one axis similarity that you're going to transition successfully. A number of people are having worse numbers while some are having better, and there's a lot of variance in it. For people who aren't familiar with me, well, I've been pretty all in on Marvel Snap since it launched at the end of 22. I've been making content on the internet here for a long time. I hit full-time content status in terms of income, actually playing Magic the Gathering online over 7 years ago on Twitch and YouTube. I then transitioned into making Magic Arena content, which had been the most successful content that I had made in terms of both numbers and revenue before moving to Marvel Snap when that launched at the end of 22. Before that, though, I unsuccessfully tried to transition into slash diversify into a variety of games. I made Hex TCG, Runeterra, Mythgard, Pokemon Unite, and even a full variety arc that all had absolutely atrocious metrics for both income and viewer numbers that were unsuccessful for me. I want to prefix with what I'm about to say with I really like Marvel Snap, and Second Dinner has honestly been the best company I have ever worked with in terms of a company that makes a game that I'm enjoying playing. So I'm making this video from a position of I hope that the issues that I'm talking about get addressed, and Marvel Snap continues to not only be a successful game in terms of revenue and support for Second Dinner, but also successful for me as a content creator, so I can continue to justify making and playing a ton of Marvel Snap as a way to support myself and my family as opposed to jumping on to other things. In my opinion, one of the biggest issues facing Marvel Snap content creators like myself right now is that we don't have a good solution for onboarding people into the content ecosystem. What do I mean by this? I mean, even if Marvel Snap is bringing in a ton of new players and users, the majority of those new players and users are going to be disconnected from content that an end game player like myself is making. Think back to the start of your Marvel Snap journey if you don't understand what I mean. When you first onboard into Marvel Snap, if you're a free-to-play player especially, you're going to be in that Series 1, Series 2 spot for 3 to 4 weeks. Then you're going to slowly transition into getting some Series 3 cards as you get thrown into the deep end of the card pool. But something to be aware of now is that deep end of the card pool has gotten even deeper. While we haven't had a ton of series drops, there have been some, and it now takes upwards of getting to collection level 5,000 to hit Series 3 complete in Marvel Snap. This is 6 to 7 months free to play, and even if you're spending a good deal of money, it's going to take you a while to get there. Loosely, about 100 USD translates to about 250 collection levels, so you'd have to spend a pretty absurd amount to progress through that, and that amount even assumes that you're playing enough to get boosters to spend the currency that you're buying. There isn't a direct spend or direct play way to be able to make content that someone like myself is making relevant for you. To give an example, I posted a video in the last few months titled Marvel Snap Decks You Could Actually Build in 2024, and it was a video that was largely Series 3 only decks, or maybe 1 or 2 Series 4 or 5 cards for players who are in an endgame situation to have a variety of decks from Marvel Snap's history that are pretty solid, if not always at the top of the pack, that they would readily be able to build from their collection. That video gets 1 to 2 comments per week from people who are newer Marvel Snap players saying, hey Jeff, I'm collection level, 700 or 1200 or even 2000 sometimes, and I can't build any of the decks in this video. And I have to post the same response that I posted a few times there. Hey, I know that sucks. You really can't build decks in this video until you hit endgame status of like collection level 5000 plus 4 months from now. And that's very different than other card games. Pokemon Pocket is the one that I've been dipping my toe into and diversifying for. And to give you a clean example, if someone comes into my Pokemon Pocket content, they're like, Jeff, I'm a Snap player. I've watched your content. This game looks neat. I want to get into it. How do I build the deck that you're building? I say, okay, gamer, these are the booster packs that the cards that I am playing come out of. You either prioritize those as free to play, or if you're spending money, you turn your money into Pokegold and you open those packs until you get these cards, or you have enough pack points to craft the cards that you're missing. In Marvel Snap, there's no avenue for that. If I have one of my brand new Pokemon Pocket viewers, which there's been a lot, Pokemon Pocket content's been pretty solidly successful, and they say, Jeff, I never considered Marvel Snap, but after watching you play Pocket, Marvel Snap looks neat too. I wouldn't mind picking up another card game. How do I build the deck that you're playing on stream right now? My answer to that player is, you can't. There's no path, whether you're free to play or even willing to spend money, for me to tell a player who's starting out in Marvel Snap today that these are the steps you take, or how much money you have to spend to play with the 12 cards that you see me playing with on your screen. And for a long time, I was a big proponent of Marvel Snap's onboarding. I think they do a good job of onboarding. I think slowly ramping up from Series 1 into 2, and then slowly until you get to that deep end of the pool at collection level 600 plus. I think this is a good job of teaching people the basics of Marvel Snap without them feeling overwhelmed. However, now that Marvel Snap is over 2 years old, that slow ramp up and eventual build into the end game makes it so content like what I'm making feels less sustainable in the long term. I want to be clear that all games, whether they're Marvel Snap or Magic Arena or Hearthstone or any other live service game, they all have ebbs and flows. There's always going to be low points and there's going to be high points, and you're going to have players leaving for a variety of reasons, from burnout to poor game balance to other things in their lives taking over, and Marvel Snap's no exception to that. The problem is that when players attrition out who are end game players watching content like my own, there's no easy way to replace them for a content creator. Even if Marvel Snap onboards 2 players for every 1 player that attritions out, which is unlikely, they're probably losing total player base overall as the game ages, those 2 players aren't going to be new content creators for someone like me. So even if Snap is bringing in enough people for Snap to be successful, the way their current economy and card acquisition is structured for new players, they're not going to contribute to content creators like myself being able to be successful in the long term. As our end game viewers attrition out and stop watching our Snap content and move on altogether, potentially if we're not diversifying into other games, we're not really able to readily replace those views, and the income that's associated with those views or direct support that people were providing. And past the new game players not having a clear path to get to content, Marvel Snap has a fairly similar problem with returning players as well. If someone hit a burnout point and for their mental health, or they just didn't have time, they took, a 2-month break from Marvel Snap, and they go, okay, Jeff, Snap, you said the Snap metagame is good. I'm ready to dive back in. How do I build these decks that you're playing? The answer is they basically can't. They're slightly better off than a brand new player in that they could theoretically spend a couple $100 and buy 4 or 5 Series 5 cards that they're missing, but that's incredibly expensive for just a handful of cards. And if they're looking to free to play or just be a small spender, there's literally no avenue for them to catch back up. I posted a Thanos deck highlight on my deck highlights channel the other day that it was playing 11 Series 5 cards. And that's just kind of how it is when you're looking to explore new things. I can't post the same bounce deck highlight or destroy deck highlight or discard deck highlight. That's a bunch of cards you'll have access to as a returning player, because the people who are still invested don't want to watch the same thing. They want to watch the new thing. And it's just so difficult as a content creator. It's impossible to be able to hit that balance. You can't make content for new and returning players and endgame players simultaneously, and there's no clear, easy transition point to get from this group that's coming back and new to this group where you're an endgame player. And if I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what the solution is here, and I don't envy the people at Second Dinner that have to figure it out. People always say the Marvel Snap economy is bad and it needs changes, and usually when they're saying that, they're talking about the end game economy where you can't get every card for free. I think, and I'm sure this is going to annoy some of you in the comments, that the end game economy in Marvel Snap, if you're a regular engaged player, is actually kind of all right. The numbers show that if you're buying the season pass, you get somewhere between 60 to 70% of the cards, depending on your variance, for just that $10 a month. And I think that that's an okay number, considering the fact that a lot of our releases are pretty niche and narrow, and you could skip them. The part of the Marvel Snap economy, in my opinion, that desperately needs a restructure and a rethink, especially in terms of allowing content like my own to be successful long-term for Marvel Snap, is this other part of it, which is, how do we get new players and returning players who have taken a month, 6 months, a year break to be able to get back into this group where the economy is actually kind of okay and they're getting a good chunk of the cards and can make meaningful choices. There's no clear path that I can suggest for people in this group to get them to this group, and that's a structural issue that Second Dinner needs to solve. And I just want to close that I really like Marvel Snap as a core game. I think despite its highs and its lows, like I expect, there's been way more good than bad. I really like working with Second Dinner as a company in terms of their engagement with content creators. They are literally second to none in terms of their overall communication with the player base. While they are definitely not perfect, no company is, they are consistently one of the best I've ever worked with. And I hope that this is on their mind and they're aware that this is a problem that needs to be solved. But in case they're not, I'm throwing this video out there because I would like to be here making Marvel Snap content in a decade, like I spent over a decade making Magic the Gathering content. And hopefully, you know, they make good choices and we get this solved. But in the event that they don't, I'm also working to diversify into Pokemon Pocket because it has avenues set up that in the long term, especially once they add trading, I think will make their game more accessible and easier to get into for players as they're onboarding later. Thanks for making it to the end of this rambly video. It's been a while since I uploaded a raw cut like this without any editing to this channel, so extra shout out to people that made it through the end. I would love to know in the comments down below if your lived experience matches any of what I talked about here. I don't usually ask for this, but I would love to hear suggestions that you may or may not have for how Second Dinner could fix this, in case someone from their company hates themselves enough to scroll through the comments on a YouTube video for it. I think it's difficult to both design a system that will not just give everything for free in the end game, because they do need to sell cards to make money, while also making it so that initial onboarding experience to get to the end game is reasonable to get people into content ecosystems. I guess a final thought is, should Second Dinner even care about me and the content ecosystem? I think they do, but maybe they don't. Maybe I'm not that important to Marvel Snap's success overall. I'm probably not, honestly, but I would like to think that the culmination of everybody like me, the Jeff Hoaglunds, the Dexters, the Cozy Snaps, all of the Regises, the largest Snap creator on YouTube right now, I'd like to think that we matter and contribute to the success of the game, and that Second Dinner would want to make it so more people get engaged with our content, but maybe they don't. That's an interesting, sad bit to muse on, I guess. All right, I'm gonna be done now. We've been talking for 15 minutes. Thanks for making it to the end. Smash the like button or something like that, I guess. And enjoy the rest of your day wherever you're at. Happy snapping, folks. Hopefully, we'll see you around later this week for some Twitch drops when they kick up on Tuesday.